This is from ChatGPT. I asked ChatGPT if Hebrew comes from Phoenician, and it said no. And I had to clarify. I could go look in the whole conversation, but anyways, this is just the excerpt that I took out of it. And I said, so you're telling me that Hebrew developed at the same time or before Phoenician? And it had to clarify. So here we go. ChatGPT, I apologize for any misunderstanding. You are correct in asserting that the Paleo-Hebrew script is directly based on the Phoenician script. The Paleo-Hebrew script is indeed derived from the Phoenician script, and there is a clear historical connection between the two. The historical relationship can be characterized as follows. The Paleo-Hebrew script is a direct adaptation of the Phoenician script. The ancient Israelites who used Paleo-Hebrew script adopted and modified the Phoenician script to suit their linguistic needs. While the Paleo-Hebrew script shares many characteristics and features with the Phoenician script, it also exhibits some distinctive variations that reflect regional adaptations. In summary, there is a direct historical scriptural connection between the Phoenician script and the Paleo-Hebrew script, with the latter being derived from the former and adapted for use by the ancient Israelites.
This stele, Egyptian stele, was erected, perhaps one of the most important documents regarding the rise of ancient Israel.
This makes it difficult to talk about the Dacians as a monolithic people group. Dacian was an exonym used by the Romans, and thus may have included a variety of ethnic groups. The Greeks also used the name Getae to describe the peoples north of the Black Sea, which further complicates the picture of continuity in the region.
It's a 13th century stele, and as you can see, it mentions for the first time the name Israel.
The name Thrace is of unclear origin. In Greek mythology, the Thracians were descendants of Thrax, the son of the war god Ares. However, other sources say that the name of the people and the region they came from originated from Threki, the daughter of ocean god Okeanos. Today, there is a modern region of the Balkans known as Thrace, which is split between Bulgaria, Greece and Turkey. In the archaeological record, artifacts identified with Thracian material culture appear in this region, but they also have a presence in what is now Romania, northern Greece, and the country of North Macedonia. Intriguingly, the region of Bithynia in what is now the northwest of Turkey seems to also have once been a homeland of the ancient Thracians. We must also keep in mind that Thracian is an exonym used by Greeks, and may not have been the word the Thracians used to identify themselves. In fact, the Thracians were probably not a homogeneous cultural group, and boasted significant internal diversity. Evidence for this exists in the accounts of ancient Greek historians like Herodotus or Thucydides, who described the Thracians as being divided into multiple tribal subgroups.
This is actually a record of an Egyptian conquest in Canaan. You see what they are, the Marneftach, the pharaoh is reporting.
So I kind of stumbled across this. I'm doing some comparative religious studies or mythology studies. I've been focusing on Greek and Roman, but I wanted to extend it and see, because I know that there's some connections between them and the Egyptian. So I started off with getting the god of the underworld. Can you tell me, Anubis, who's the god of the underworld? Getting his family, what's the connection? And as I'm in get the hieroglyphs, I wasn't sure, clarifying the difference between Anubis and Set, making sure that it's not like just Hades and Pluto, the same person. So then I get to the point where I'm like, okay, well, did it have a river like Hades? Because I'm assuming that if they get the structure from the Egyptians, maybe they also incorporate the river. So yes, Duat, the underworld of the Egyptian underworld, had a river, the river of Nun. This primordial river was believed to flow through Duat. Significant. Oh, I might as well just do this.
Yes, the Duat, the Egyptian underworld, had a river, the river of Nun. This primordial river was believed to flow through the Duat. Significance. It was a vital waterway for the journey of the deceased. The Duat was a complex and multifaceted concept, and the river of Nun played a significant role in the passage of the soul through this otherworldly realm.
Okay. Is there a known etymology for nun in Egyptian?
The etymology of nun in Egyptian is complex and subject to some interpretation. But here are some key points. Watery 1. The name nun is often associated with the concept of water. It may derive from the idea of watery or fluid. Inert 1. Another interpretation links nun to the concept of inertness or stagnation. This connects to the idea of the primordial waters as a state of chaos before creation. Connection to nini, tired. There may be a wordplay connection between nun and the word nini, which means to be tired or to be inert. This further supports the idea of nun representing a state of formlessness before creation. In essence, the name nun likely reflects the dual nature of the primordial waters. They were the source of all creation, yet also represented a state of chaos and formlessness. It's important to note that the precise etymology of ancient Egyptian words can be difficult to determine with absolute certainty due to the limitations of our current understanding of the language.
Okay, then I do a little different comparison, but we'll just go down here, and then we got to this. I was thinking, hey, isn't there a word nun or letter in Hebrew too? And you know where I got that from? In the movie The History of the World from Mel Brooks. There's a scene where they have a swimming scene where they have a bunch of nuns, synchronized swimming scene, and they dive in and they start doing a swimming scene. And I was like, oh, I get that joke.
You're absolutely right. Nun, A, is the 14th letter of the Hebrew alphabet. It represents the sound /n/. This adds another layer of interesting connections, considering the potential etymological links between the Egyptian nun, primordial waters, and the Hebrew letter. While not a direct correlation, it points to how concepts of water, beginning, and the primordial may have resonated across ancient cultures in the Near East. Thanks for pointing this out. It opens up another avenue of exploration.
Wait. So what is nun in Hebrew? I didn't understand that.
In Hebrew, nun, refers to the 14th letter of the Hebrew alphabet. Sound. It represents the sound /n/. Origin. Like many Hebrew letters, nun has origins in the Phoenician alphabet. Symbolism. In Hebrew, letters often carry deeper symbolic meanings. While the exact symbolism of nun can vary depending on the context, it may be associated with fish. Some sources suggest a possible connection between the shape of the letter and a fish, symbolizing fertility and abundance. Continuation. The letter nun itself is sometimes associated with the concept of continuation or perpetuation. I apologize for any confusion in my previous response.
Oh, it gets better than that. So nun is a Phoenician letter, okay? So yeah, that just basically says, yeah. Does it also mean fish in Phoenician?
While the Phoenician letter nun itself doesn't directly translate to fish, there is a connection. Possible origin. Some scholars suggest that the name of the Phoenician letter nun may have originated from a word related to fish or snake. Symbolic associations. The letter's shape and its potential connection to water have led to symbolic associations with fish, which are often associated with life, abundance, and the depths of the sea. Important note. The exact origins and meanings of ancient letters and their names are often subject to scholarly debate and interpretation. I hope this clarifies the connection between the Phoenician letter nun and the concept of fish.
So I'm going to pause it real quick and find the next part that I'm looking for. Here's another interesting part.
The Phoenician equivalent of the Hebrew letter shin, e, is also called shin, e, sound. It represents the voiceless palato-alveolar fricative, taf, similar to the shore sound in English ship. Origin. The Hebrew shin directly derives from this Phoenician letter. Development. This Phoenician shin further evolved into the Greek sigma, which ultimately gave rise to the Latin letter S and many other letters in various alphabets. I hope this clarifies the Phoenician equivalent of shin.
All right, this is the last part. Oh, so Moses in Egyptian, I think, was born of or from, and Moses in Hebrew was drawn out of. Is there a Phoenician variation of this?
The name Moses in Hebrew, Me'eh, is believed to be derived from the Egyptian word mos, which means to draw out or to be born. Phoenician connection, close linguistic relationship. Phoenician and Hebrew are closely related Semitic languages. Similar sound patterns. It's likely that there would have been a similar sounding word in Phoenician with a related meaning. Limited surviving records. Unfortunately, our knowledge of ancient Phoenician is limited primarily to inscriptions and archaeological finds. This makes it difficult to pinpoint an exact Phoenician equivalent for the name Moses. Possible scenarios. similar root word. There might have been a Phoenician word with a similar root to the Egyptian mos, perhaps meaning to draw forth, to rescue, or something related to birth or extraction, borrowing from Egyptian. Given the close cultural and linguistic ties between Egypt and Phoenicia, it's possible that the name Moses or a similar form may have been borrowed directly from Egyptian into the Phoenician language. In summary, while we can't definitively say what the exact Phoenician equivalent of Moses might have been, it's highly probable that a similar sounding word with a related meaning existed within the Phoenician language due to the close linguistic and cultural connections between Egypt and Phoenicia. Disclaimer: this is a linguistic and historical interpretation based on our current understanding. I hope this helps.
All right.
He has conquered Ashkelon, he's conquered Gezer, he's conquered Yenoam, a city apparently in northern Israel. Israel is laid waste, and Churu, Canaan, has become a widow. So a huge conventional victory stele.
Tonight is on the Aztecs. So to start my talk, I want to clarify something, and that is this: there's no such thing. There was never a population of people who called themselves the Aztecs. They called themselves the Mexica, M-E-X-I-C-A, which looks shockingly like Mexico because that's where we get the word Mexico from. The Mexica never called themselves the Aztecs. They said they were from Aztlan, A-T-Z-L-A-N, Aztlan, and what happened was, about 150 years ago, anthropologists in some Ivy League school in the northeastern part of the United States decided they were sick of writing Mexica and then talking about Mexican society. So it's M-E-X-I-C-A-N. It looks like Mexican, and they couldn't differentiate then between pre-Columbian Mexico and post-Columbian Mexico. And so they came up with a new term, and EC on the end of something indicates that you're a people. So they took Aztlan, the place that the Aztecs said they were from, and made Aztec so that they could get away from using
But for us, of course, the important issue in this stele, that this is the earliest mention of the name Israel, and as part of this, the earliest external mention of the word Israel.
I want to welcome you to another episode of Pod for Israel, and I have with us today Ron Silber. They found.
Yeah, so they found a very small lead tablet that some people say it's an amulet, or not exactly sure, but with very ancient Hebrew inscription that appeared to be the oldest ever found.
Wow, it's amazing.
And it's 200 years earlier than anything found before that in Hebrew. Now we know for sure that it's Hebrew. The letters are not Hebrew letters. Those are the same letters were used by the Canaanites, by the Israelites, by the Edomites, just like Latin is used in many languages. The same, those Proto-Canaanite writing, they call it, they used. How do we know that it's Hebrew? Because there is the name of the Lord, Yud Hey Vav Hey, or actually there it's only the three letters, Yud Hey Vav. That's only the Israelites use the name of the Lord. There's nobody except the Israelites use it. So we know for sure that's Hebrew.
This is how Israel was written in Egyptian hieroglyphs. What is even more interesting about this name is that, as some of you may know, Egyptian words were very often preceded by a determinative, meaning an explanation of the category the name belongs to. So if you write the name Chicago, you will have before Chicago the determinative for a city, so you know that Chicago is a city. Ashkelon and Gezer in this inscription, for instance, are preceded by determinatives of city. The name of Israel is not, because the determinative that you can see of a seated man and a seated woman describes usually a non-sedentary population. So it's maybe a tribe, something that is not urban, that is not settled.
By the year 1000 BCE, and in the centuries that followed it, we have lots of examples of a stylized version of the script being used throughout the Levant, both by the Phoenicians and by the ancient Israelites. Generally, this version of the alphabet is called Phoenician, although when found at ancient Israelite sites, it is called Paleo-Hebrew. But basically, they're the same.
So the importance of this stele is that it tells us that the Egyptians in the late 13th century knew of some entity called Israel that was apparently probably a nomad, or at least not a settled entity. Regretfully, we have no idea of where this entity of Israel was located. Somewhere in Canaan, because as you saw between Ashkelon and Gezer, it's somewhere it's in a Canaanite context, but this is what we know. But let's remember this occurrence.
This is taken from a conversation with Bing, Copilot. I asked, is it anti-Semitic to say that Hebrew came directly from Phoenician? Because that is something that Jewish people vehemently, violently, maliciously, and aggressively utilize as an attack for people that say that in public. So this is from another AI. No, it is not inherently anti-Semitic to state that the Hebrews adopted the Phoenician alphabet and developed it into their own writing system. This perspective is based on historical and archaeological evidence, which shows that many ancient cultures, including the Hebrews, borrowed and adapted technologies and ideas from their neighbors. Ideas, wonder if religious. Historical context, cultural exchange. The ancient Near East was a region of significant cultural exchange. The Phoenician alphabet, which emerged around 1050 BCE, influenced many writing systems, including Hebrew. Adaptation. The Hebrews adapted the Phoenician script to create the Paleo-Hebrew script, which was used until around the 5th century BCE. Respectful discussion. Acknowledging contributions, recognizing the historical development of writing systems does not diminish the cultural and religious significance of the Hebrew alphabet. It is important to approach such discussions with respect for the beliefs and traditions of the Jewish community. They want to believe that God gave them their language because they try to assert, remember all that Bible code stuff? They try to assert that God embedded a code in the alphabet that he gave them. And they stuck with that narrative for centuries until the advent of the mass influx of information that we now have available to us. And as the house of cards comes tumbling down, rather than accept defeat and say, hey, my bad, we're wrong, they turn to the accusations of anti-Semitism, racism, and bigotry, and saying that because they incorporate the narrative into their religion, they call it an attack on Judaism. And that is narcissistic personality abuse technique. Avoiding stereotypes. Anti-Semitism involves prejudice and discrimination against Jewish people. And what is anti-Gentilism? What is Jewish supremacy? They have white supremacy. You want to see, they have black supremacy, right? You don't think they have black supremacy? As a matter of fact, I could just do that right here. Where's the other one? Here, booyah. This is from the Jewish Committee, American Jewish Committee 823, 5 of things Kanye West said, okay? Here are 5 of the Kanye West previous statements on how they, here are 5 of Kanye West's previous statements on how they tie to common among black supremacists that claim white Jews are not the real Jews. Instead, these black supremacists alleged without evidence that Jews are imposters who have stolen the identity and birthright of black people as the true chosen people of God. According to this conspiracy theory, it's not a religious belief, it's a conspiracy theory, the descendants of the 12 Hebrew tribes of Israel settled across Africa after the destruction of the kingdom of Israel and eventually were sold into slavery. All right, so avoiding stereotypes. Anti-Semitism involves prejudice and discrimination against Jewish people. It is crucial to avoid making statements that perpetuate negative stereotypes or imply that Jewish culture is inferior because it borrowed from others. But it says its denial of the facts are its assertion that it's superior to the others. And this is malicious deception. This is malicious deception. I call it Jew speak. And they do it to your face, and they use emotional content in order to sway. And actually, I'll do one more just for the heck of it. They use this. When two individuals interact, the sicker person determines the relationship. The more extreme and rigid the person, the greater his or her interpersonal pull, the stronger his or her ability to shape the relationship with others. The withdrawn catatonic, the irretrievable criminal, the compulsively flirtatious charmer, or the fundamentally insane religious fanatic that is racially motivated, okay? Emotionally racially motivated, can inevitably provoke the expected response from a more well-balanced other, from somebody that is approaching them as a friend. We meet here the lowest common denominator process, a Gresham's law of interpersonal conditions. Sick people control the interpersonal reaction. The sicker or more maladaptively rigid, the more power to determine the nature of the relationship. The politics of self-determination, Timothy Leary.